Hey everyone, David Aragona here, previewing the Smart and Fancy Stakes on Saturday at Saratoga. This one goes as race 9 on an 11 race card. 5.5 furlongs on the Mellon Turf Course for older fillies and mares are the conditions of this race, kind of the sequel to the Grade 3 Caress that was run a little bit earlier in the meet. And we've got a number of runners running back from that affair in the Smart and Fancy. Let's take a look at the field of this for this race. We've got 9 runners signed on, entered for the turf. 1 MTO entrant, that is the number 10 Spicy Marg, drawn all the way on the outside. She will only run if this race gets rained off the grass, but we're hoping that it stays on because this is a pretty competitive field. As you can see, I had a tough time making the morning line for this race. I've got 3 horses that are almost the same price vying for favoritism, those being the number 1 Change of Control, the number 6 Miss J. McKay, and the number 9 Caravel. The latter 2 do come out of that Caress Stakes from earlier in the meet, but the winner of that race was the number 3 Robin Sparkles. I've got her pegged at 6-1 on the morning line after she was a 21-1 winner of the Caress earlier in the Saratoga meet. And speaking of Robin Sparkles, let's take a look at where she's positioned on the Timeform US pace projector, because she is a filly that likes to be forwardly placed at her races. She won the Caress by leading the entire way, and she could face some pressure on the front end this time because there is another very fast filly in this race in the form of the number 4 Sarah Harper. Now, Sarah Harper is actually making her turf debut in this race, so she's going to have to transfer her impressive dirt speed over to the turf. But if she does so, I think she could be a real thorn in the side of Robin Sparkles, because Sarah Harper is a horse that has a lot of gate speed and should be forwardly placed or outright in front of this race for the opening quarter mile. We'll see how the closers do. The closers seem to have a little bit of trouble making up ground into the pace that Robin Sparkles set in the Caress last time, but horses like the number 6 Miss J. McKay and the number 5 Too Sexy, a couple of Christophe Clement trained-up runners, will hope that they do go quickly up front to have their best chance in this race. Let's take a look at the horse that I did peg as the slight morning line favorite. That's the number 1 Change of Control, when she won last time out at Colonial Downs in the middle of July. And this was just a nice confidence-building win for Change of Control. This was her first victory of the 2022 season, but certainly not her first stakes victory. Actually, the 6th Turf Sprint Stakes win of her career. She's just been a really solid, hard-knocking mare for trainer Michelle Lovell. Really runs well wherever they race her, whatever the class level, the track. She's shipped to Naira a couple of times in the past, actually I think 3 times, has a couple of wins to show for it, and she just always gives a solid account of herself. So somewhat surprising that she achieved her first victory of the season last time, but she has had some trips, didn't have the best of luck on a few occasions, and has been placed in some tough spots, particularly 2 back when she actually ran a deceptively strong 4th in the Grade 1 Jaipur against males, finishing behind the winner of that race, Cossacrite, who did come back to flatter that form by winning the Grade 1 4-star Dave at Saratoga last week. So really no knocks against Change of Control. She's just coming in with a really strong form. Doesn't necessarily have speed figures that are going to knock your socks off, but she always runs well, and I think that she's going to be pretty tough for these fillies to handle in the Smart and Fancy. Let's take a look at that Caress Stakes that I was talking about towards the top, because a lot of the runners in the Smart and Fancy did prep for it in the Caress. And I'm going to highlight 3 runners that are coming out of that race. The one on the lead there that you see is Robin Sparkles. The horse, the chestnut in the middle there, is Lady Edith. And the one in the pink cap all the way on the outside is Miss J. McKay. As I said, Robin Sparkles led the entire way, is able to just hold on here as they run onto the wire. The one that really did have the tough trip, though, was Miss J. McKay. She's closing out at the center of the track. By the time they got to the stretch, the trouble had already kind of happened, but she does finish well after kind of a difficult beginning to just lose by about 3/4 of a length at the wire. But as for that winner, Robin Sparkles, you can see she got a nice 117 Timeform US speed figure for that victory last time, really getting back to the best form of her career after kind of going through a rough patch towards the end of last year, heading into the beginning of this year, hadn't really recaptured her best form for a couple of starts, but she seemed to be back to the good Robin Sparkles last time, though she did have the advantage of getting loose on the front end in a race that did not feature that much early speed. You can see the opening Timeform US pace figure for that Caress is color-coded in blue. Not sure we're going to get that same kind of pace scenario here with that other speed, Sarah Harper, in the mix. So I was going to try to take a shot against Robin Sparkles. Also, I just feel like last time was the time to have her at 21-1, and she's going to be maybe a third of that price in this spot. The horse that I was saying did have the toughest trip in that Caress last time is the number 6, Miss J. McKay. As you can see, she lost that race by less than a length, and you can kind of see it in the trouble line as well on the right-hand side over the Timeform USPPs. Steady to the 5As, steady to the 7/16s, just had a couple spots of trouble as the horse that was actually in front of her, Caravel, who we'll talk about in just a bit, got steadied out of position, and Miss J. McKay kind of in a chain reaction had to steady behind her a couple of times. Actually did well to make a run at the end of that race. She also got a poor trip 2 back in the Intercontinental when she was just 4 to 5 wide all the way around the far turn that day. So her form is definitely dirtied up. She showed what she was capable of 3 back when she was a decisive winner of the license fee earlier this year at Belmont Park. So I definitely think that Miss J. McKay has the form to win this race, just has to work out a better trip this time under Irad Ortiz. And I feel like the trip last time was one that a lot of people saw. So I'm not sure that we're really finding much value with her off that poor trip. I think that she is going to take some money after that difficult go of it last time, but she definitely is a contender in this race. Another Christophe Clement trained runner in this field is the number 8, Lady Edith, and she actually finished 1 spot ahead of Miss J. McKay last time out in that Caress. And I don't want to discount her chances, even though she's come up short in her last couple of stakes tries, because she's been big prices in both of those races, but she figures to be a nice price once again here. I've got her pegged at 8 to 1 in the morning line, and I wouldn't be surprised if she even drifts up a little bit off that price, because she does have a lower profile jockey and Trevor McCarthy riding, but really hard to knock her recent form. She has run well in both of those recent races, and she is one who is going to appreciate any pace that develops on the front end. The horse that was the beaten favorite in the Caress is Caravel, the number 9 in this race. Let's take a look at her when she ran 2 back in the Intercontinental, winning that Grade 3 event at Belmont Park. And she did so wiring the field on the front end, but she did have things working in her favor this day because she got to set some fractions that were on the moderate side, and she was also on the rail for the entirety of her trip. And you really wanted to ride the inside path on this day at Belmont Park when the temporary rails had come down. So I feel like Caravel was a somewhat fortunate winner of the Intercontinental, but on the other hand, she really had a lot of go wrong for her last time out in the Caress. Just broke a little bit slowly, tried to rush up on the inside and secure a position, but she wound up in a precarious spot as the field broke for the turn, and she had to steady pretty badly out of position and just didn't look like she ever got back in the bridle after that. She crossed the wire last that day, but I really think that the trip had a lot to do with that performance. But the problem is she got fortunate 2 back. I feel like she hasn't really gotten back to the best races that she ran for former trainer Elizabeth Merriman ever since a private purchase last year, and I just feel like she's a horse that always takes more money than she really deserves to. I've got her pegged as the co-second choice on the morning line at 4 to 1. Personally, I would want a bigger price if I were going to support her here. So I was somewhat against Caravel in this spot, even though she did have a tough trip last time in that Caress. Another horse that could offer some decent value in this race is the number 7, Illegal Smile, coming out of a different race, actually, also running in that Intercontinental that Caravel won 2 back. She was never on the rail that day, stalking about 3 wide for most of her trip, so I do want to give her some extra credit for being off the inside for the entirety of her run that day. She did fade a little bit at the end, but that was going 6 furlongs. I do think she's one that will appreciate the slight cutback to 5.5 furlongs, and maybe she flies a little bit under the radar coming back off the slight layoff for Wesley Ward. I don't want to totally discount her chances, though I did end up preferring some others in this race. Christophe Clement actually has 3 runners in this field. We already talked about 2 of them. Let's discuss his third runner, the number 5, Too Sexy, and we'll take a look at when she won the Floral Park at Belmont back in October of 2021, so going back almost a year ago. But she was a pretty impressive winner this day. You can see she was rated coming off the far turn, but once they straightened away into the stretch, she just mows this field down, running down the center of the turf course to draw off and win by over 3 lengths at the end. This was when she was in the peak form of her career. She was really doing well in the fall at Belmont and Aqueduct last year, had a layoff, and just didn't seem to be quite the same horse when she came back in that license fee at Belmont Park earlier this year in May. But the trip also didn't work out for her that day. You see those blue color coded Timeform US pace figures. She got a little bit rank coming off the layoff, rating behind that slow pace. So maybe you want to give her an excuse, but now there's been a subsequent layoff since then. So she likely had a setback coming out of that race. So there are definitely some questions for Too Sexy to answer, but make no mistake, she was in good form last year. So if she can get back to that those top efforts that she ran back in October of last year, she can be a factor here. But she is another one that needs some pace to close into if she's going to be most effective in this Smart and Fancy. Let's take a look at my picks for this race. And I just decided to put the horse on top that I think is the best runner in this field. And for me, that is the number 1, Change of Control. She's coming off a victory, but she's going out for connections, Michelle Lovell and jockey CJ Hernandez, that generally don't take that much money. She always goes off at a somewhat overlaid price due to the fact that she's going out for these lower profile connections. So I think that I'm going to get what I deem to be fair odds on Change of Control in this race. And she just projects to work out a really nice trip from the rail, sitting likely in mid-pack. So I have her on top. I am interested in the number 6, Miss Jane McKay, who's coming off that tough trip last time in the Caress. I think she's going to run better here, likely with a more aggressive ride from Arad Ortiz. And I also have the number 7, Illegal Smile, and the number 8, Lady Edith in the mix. I think they're both runners that could offer some value in this race. I have them each pegged at 8-1 on the morning line. So that's a look at the Smart and Fancy on Saturday at Saratoga. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.